Good afternoon. My name's Joe Clark. I'm from the Energy Systems Research Unit at the University of Strathclyde. Within the unit, we develop energy systems prototypes, we test them, and we embody the knowledge we obtain within computational tools for use by practitioners and related student body. Okay, welcome everyone to this seminar. Title's given here. It's about this notion that we could put inside CAD tools, computer-aided design software. We could embed inside such software simulation-based models of the performance of buildings and in fact the entire built environment. And that would allow us to deliver to the design profession in the construction industry quite detailed performance pictures as part of the design process, without them having to learn quite complex software and construct quite difficult data models. So that's really the notion that I'm presenting today. However, to defend this notion to you and present it and defend it, I have to set a context. So what I'm going to do is try to define the challenge of moving from the current energy systems we have to future sustainable energy systems. So what's the challenge? Why is it a difficult one? And that then would take me on nicely to the justification of a more rational, rigorous approach to the design of all the artifacts which comprise our built environment. And that then takes me on to helping you to understand what these models might look like as I characterize the different tools that will be possible in future. So to start with the context, at the highest level concept I want to bring to you is that everyone comes to this issue from a different perspective. And that actually doesn't make things easy. It makes things incredibly difficult. Some people are very concerned with carbon emissions. And so therefore they are talking the story of climate change and how that might be mitigated and the sorts of things we might have to do. Other people might be much more concerned with the creation of environments where we don't have mold growth and breathing-related illnesses, and we have good comfort levels which give enhanced productivity. So they will come with a different perspective and a different language they will use. And as we go down the list, we see politicians might be quite fearful of a future where security of energy supply is not guaranteed, and the tensions internationally that might give rise to. So you see the different perspectives which give rise to different pressure groups and different vocabularies. A quote, a prime ministerial quote, that no government or no country is going to cut its growth or consumption substantially in the light of a long-term environmental problem. Whether we like that or not, it rings true. Economic growth and sustaining economic growth is the raison d'etre of government. And as we saw in the recent economic crisis, the government took steps to stimulate the marketplace. That is, stimulate energy use. And it's very unlikely that we're going to not see significant politically driven rises in energy as societies throughout the world seek to attain a higher standard of living, which requires more economic growth. So if we are to do something about this context, this problem, and move ourselves towards sustainable energy systems, then there's two classic areas we can apply our talents to. One is to reduce and or reshape demand. So we might not manage to reduce it, but we might manage to reshape the demand in terms of a profile being reshaped, so that we can fit other technologies and other sources of energy to supply it. Or we might go on to the supply side, not the demand side, and look for new and interesting and innovative ways to feed into the energy supply systems. Now, clearly, at the very core of our difficulties is population growth. The world's population will grow in future. The expectations of that growing population will grow, and that will give rise to an ever-increasing demand for energy. And there's no option available to us to control population. And so that is going to happen. That then gives rise to the bottom two bullet points. Perhaps we could cause populations to change their lifestyle. And in parenthesis there, it is likely that most people would be happy to do a little, but if they do a little, they'll end up saving a little, as you'll see in a moment. And the requirement to get the population to do a lot to save a lot is really mind-boggling if we think we can bring about internationally the kind of lifestyle changes that would seriously impact on an ever-increasing demand for energy. So another way we might go is to deploy apt technologies. And I'll show you some of these technologies in a minute. And of course, my underlying thesis is complexity explosion, knowing which ones fit which context, how they might be blended. On the supply side, I will say right now that we will need a balance of fossil, nuclear, and renewables. And I will be at pains in a moment to justify that statement. And therefore, the future's not about dirty fossils and getting rid of them. The future is about protecting them, nurturing them, making them last as long as we can, respecting them as the ultimate encapsulation of solar energy, and making sure we can use them more efficiently, that the consequences of using them are more acceptable, they're cleaner. As we pursue the nuclear options that we must, and as we take time to build the renewable economy. It took 100 years to build the oil economy. We're not going to replace it overnight. It's going to take us at least a century to deploy the new and renewable technologies at the scales required. So let me start on the demand side. These data presented here are from David Mackay, a physicist professor at Oxford, who publishes his free book. Download it, and he's very usefully taken statistics on the UK energy demand and mapped them into demand per person per day. And that's a lovely unit because it allows someone like me to speak directly to someone like you, because effectively this is what you are responsible for as an average person. And what we see is the breakdown into heating of and cooling of our buildings, our built environment, jet flights, cars, and whatever. And on this side you see some of the actions that could be taken. Some are called simple because they would be quite easy to implement in terms of the capital required and the infrastructure change. They may be difficult for other reasons. And some are quite difficult to implement because they require major refurbishments, and that needs lots of capital investment and political will and so on. And what this really says is there are certain things which we might ask the population to do. For example, use low energy light bulbs, which is a very good thing to do. They last longer, they save you money. But it's not going to have any major impact on reducing demand because we can see the relative size of the numbers. Those actions which would have a very high and beneficial impact on demand reduction, such as stopping flying, will not be palatable to the majority of the population, and especially not young people who want to see the world, who want to stay connected physically with friends as a balance to the virtual world they live in. So we've no real moral obligation to bring that about by draconian measures. Some of the areas, like replacing old buildings with new, would give us the opportunity to be much more radical in the way we design the energy systems in the built environment. But you can see the huge upheaval of society required to do that. The replacement rate of buildings is not that high. How long will that take? Stuff. All the things we buy, our suits and our gadgets and everything we buy, society is predicated on the marketplace. So it's very difficult to cause people not to relate in a very intimate way with the market, because that's what we do. That is our society. Do we really want to crumble that away? And if so, I, for one, want to know what we're replacing it with. And so, my message here, with thanks to the stats from David Mackay, is it's painfully difficult to bring about lifestyle changes of the magnitude required. And remember what I said a minute ago, these demands are going to grow, not just in the UK, but throughout the world, and they're going to grow at different rates.